welcome to Commons Park.
Yay!
We're almost there, I'm Linda Broadfoot, I'm your Director of Indy Parks, and I'm thrilled to welcome you all here to our newest park space today. Looking around, I'm so proud we get to give you a sneak peek of Commons Park as we officially celebrate the park and all the great possibilities that come with it. This time last year, Commons Park was only an idea. With Mayor Joe Hogsett's leadership, we knew something good had to occupy this space. We wanted to live up to the mayor's promise to transform this land into a welcome play space for children and their families. To get things going, we asked neighbors, business owners, and community groups to let us know what they wanted and how they saw themselves enjoying this space. From the climbing structure to the colorful play cube and quad pod spinner, which is coming, Commons Park is even more spectacular than we imagined. I extend a special thank you to our senior park planner, Ben Jackson. Where'd Ben go? Ben, there he is, way over there, he's waving. Ben guided our public meetings. He took on the challenging task of designing and managing this space from start to finish. He's done a tremendous job. And for the record, Ben's mom is here as well. She's very proud. So welcome to Rita Jackson. Thanks also to Don Colvin and Danny Swales, our friends at the Department of Public Works, for their valued efforts. Cassandra Shelby and the Parks Maintenance team has helped get us ready for today. We also extend appreciation to the Department of Metropolitan Development, Director Emily Mack, Peggy Frazier, and Rusty Carr. They were incredible partners in the development of Commons Park. We're grateful to Larry and Becky Eacle of B&E Contracting, Blake Hodson of Playworld Midstates, and Rich St. Clair from St. Clair Recreation. And we're so happy to see the children from Thomas Gregg Neighborhood School join us here today. So they're itching to get on the playground. Yay. So thank you, kids. We'll be there in just a minute, I promise. Together, we're helping Indy residents feel a sense of pride in their neighborhoods and engaging them in their parks and our city's green spaces. And with that, I introduce you to the biggest parks cheerleader there is, our fabulous mayor, Joe Hogsett.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. Well, thank you, Linda, and indeed, good morning.
Good morning.
We are here today to celebrate the opening of our city's newest public space, Commons Park. As you can see, workers are still putting final touches on this play space, but to say that this is an improvement over what used to be here is quite an understatement. Commons Park stands on the grounds of what was once a house that you wouldn't even want to walk past. If you go on to Google Maps to view this address and cycle back to 2011, you will see the dilapidated clubhouse of a motorcycle gang. And these individuals were more than mere motorcycle enthusiasts. This organization dealt in prescription and illegal drugs, perpetrated violence, insurance fraud, loan sharking, and a host of other offenses. In 2012, the FBI, federal law enforcement generally, and the United States Attorney's Office led a raid on this space, the largest federal raid in Indianapolis history. Dozens of arrests ensued and the eventual closing of that clubhouse. When I ran for mayor, we talked about improving the quality of life in every neighborhood. And I wanted this space to return to the community as an asset. I wanted it to be a place where East Side families could enjoy openly, a place that would attract developers and investors to the area, a place that would welcome visitors wanting to explore our fabulous East Side, a place more hospitable than a shabby complex of rundown buildings covered in no trespassing signs. Well, today, as Indy Parks adds its newest Greenspace Commons Park, it is now a place open to all of Indianapolis. It will stand as a monument to community, not a threat to community. I want to recognize the good work of Indy Parks, the leadership of both Vice President, City County Councilor Zach Adamson, as well as the Willard Park Neighborhood Association. Yes. In recent years, we've seen the East Side taking control and investing in their neighborhoods like never before. From mobile farmers markets at shuttered groceries to the Sherman Park development on the old RCA plant, from the Teachers Village to Commons Park. This side of town, our side, our East Side, is building itself up into something incredibly special. And that comes down to the people who live here. For while we work to end the struggles that may remain, we know that there is a dedicated group of neighbors right here who love the East Side, who want to see it shine its brightest, out from under the shadow of criminal enterprises like the one that stood here 6 years ago. And so I'm happy to see Commons Park become yet another place that those neighbors that I just referred to have reclaimed to sit, relax, and enjoy the play of our children out in the open. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Assistant United States Attorney who led the prosecution at this place, Brad Blackington. Brad.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for the kind introduction. Shortly after Joe became U.S. Attorney, and at a time where I barely knew him, I walked into his office and I told him that I was working on a case with the FBI and the IRS into the criminal activities of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. I explained to him that it would be a long-term investigation that would consume significant resources. I told him that it'd be a very difficult case with the possibility that we might not win. I told him that we would use the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organization statute, better than known as the RICO statute, to prosecute the case, and that that was a statute that we'd never used before in this district. Much to my surprise, with all the risk, the new United States Attorney grasped our vision for the case. He signed off on the investigation quickly and allowed us to proceed. I was joined by several talented and dedicated investigators whose contributions I'd like to acknowledge. The lead case agents were Phil Tahara of the FBI and Eric White of the IRS. Eric is in the audience today, and he's joined by Gabe Grisham from the IRS Criminal Investigation.
Thank you.
Ryan Van Overen and Jeff Allen from the IMPD assisted us mightily on the state side. United States Marshal at the time, Kerry Forstall, joined the team during the forfeiture stage, and he effectively became the real estate agent for this project. We began the investigation in 2011. We tapped eight telephones over a period of 6 months. At the end of the investigation, we executed over 20 search warrants, including at the building that stood behind us. We arrested 49 defendants, including all of the members of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club in Indianapolis and 2 Outlaws members in Fort Wayne. All 49 defendants were convicted. Many of the outlaws who once terrorized the East Side still languish in federal prison. As the investigation developed, though, it became clear to us that we needed to do more than simply arrest the members of the Outlaws and their associates. On 2 prior occasions, federal authorities from Florida and Ohio successfully prosecuted several members of the Outlaws here in Indianapolis. Yet the Outlaws still remained a force in Indianapolis after that prosecution. Why? Because they still held on to their compound at East New York Street and Jefferson Avenue in Indianapolis. We knew that if the Outlaws still retained this compound at the end of our investigation, a new group of outlaws would return to the compound and continue to inflict mayhem in this community. During the past several years, many people have criticized state and federal forfeiture laws. They've cited abuses that sometimes have happened in forfeiture practice. We're here today because despite some infrequent and isolated abuses, forfeiture laws work to help protect the public. We use the forfeiture provisions of the RICO statute to not only seize the Outlaws' compound that once stood behind us, but money and 2 other properties. Our use of the forfeiture statute removed real estate from the hands of criminals and turned the real estate to productive uses that now benefit the community. One of the seized properties was the Outlaws Clubhouse in Fort Wayne. When we seized the property in 2012, that clubhouse was a black forbidding building that had witnessed rampant drug trafficking, gambling, and numerous crimes of violence, including gang rapes. We seized and forfeited the property. We sold it to the private sector. Today, that once black and forbidding building is painted hot pink. The former Outlaws Clubhouse in Fort Wayne is the site of Hot Yoga Fort Wayne. Next, we seized and forfeited the Sidewinders Bar that's located near Fountain Square. For the 12 years that I'd been a federal prosecutor before taking on the Outlaws case, Sidewinders had surfaced in 3 federal drug investigations. The bar was an open market for members of Mexican cartels and biker gangs to sell illegal drugs. As part of the Outlaws investigation, we convicted the owner of the bar and forfeited the bar along with the liquor license that attached to the bar. Sidewinders Bar was shut down for good. We sold both the bar and the liquor license to the private sector. The property is now for sale and will hopefully become part of the economic development activity that is turning Fountain Square back into a thriving neighborhood. Last, we used the forfeiture provisions of the RICO statute to seize and forfeit the Outlaws Clubhouse that once stood behind us. We used the money that we gained from the forfeitures in Fort Wayne and the Sidewinders Bar to pay for the demolition of the Outlaws compound. We gave the money, we then gave the property to the city of Indianapolis. And look, what a wonderful job the city's done in creating this public park. They've done a great job. 7 years ago, this property housed the Outlaws Motorcycle Club and was a site of gang activity that included drug trafficking, extortion, gambling, insurance fraud, money laundering, witness intimidation, and repeated and ongoing acts of violence. 7 years ago, this property was the heart of a violent gang in Indianapolis. 7 years ago, the Outlaws' use of this property inflicted great harm to this neighborhood in the East Side. Now, this property will become a family-friendly park, which will improve the lives of people and contribute positively to the community for years to come. I want to thank the hardworking people of the FBI, IRS, IMPD, United States Marshal Service, and the city of Indianapolis that made the transformation of this property and the transformation of this neighborhood possible. Now I'd like to introduce Councilor Zach Adamson to provide further remarks.
Good morning. Ooh, that's loud. Good morning. Good morning. On behalf of the City County Council and the community at large, and by the way, there are several Willard Park neighbors who are here today. I see Joe and Kay and Sue, and I saw Robert somewhere. Sarah, I know if you're a Willard Park resident, you raise your hand just to let everybody know you're here. Very good. Willard Park in the house. We all greatly appreciate the presence of U.S. Attorney's Office here on this very special day. On behalf of District 17, I would like to thank Mayor Joe Hogsett, Indy Parks, and the many active community members that have advocated for the beautification of this land. I am so excited at long last to be here for Commons Park ribbon cutting. Many of us here today have watched with great anticipation the evolution of this land. Days like today remind us of the importance of the park system here in Indy. Today, this ground stands as a place for the community to gather, to play and connect. To connect, as Mayor Hogsett likes to say, as one city. Commons Park serves as a symbol of healthy renewal and rejuvenation to the residents of the Near East Side. This morning we gather at Indianapolis's newest park, a ground once known for violence and crime. I think now will be a site of many memorable moments for neighbors, children, and families. I'd like to say to the community at large, Commons Park is your park, your place to gather, to build relationships and spend time together. Let us all continue to keep working together as one city for a better Indianapolis. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, District 17 resident, Willard Park Neighborhood Association board member, a dedicated advocate for the Near East Side, my friend and neighbor, Joey Newsom.
Joey's got a fan club.
Yeah. Thanks. Sammy, come on up here. Sammy's my son. Yeah, step around over here. This is all these kids from School 15 and neighbors and my own children here. This is the reason we do this, right? Today marks my wife and I our 15-year wedding anniversary. I know, it's pretty cool. And it's actually 14 years ago when we bought a house just a block away, and that was our first house we lived in, and we've been in Willard Park ever since. And it was, in fact, this street that we both grew to love so much, our neighbors, our neighborhood, and the Near East Side in general. Here on this street, we experienced a lot of diversity, not only racially, but socioeconomically. But in this context, we found a group of neighbors and lifelong friends. We found here neighbors shoveling around our car when we couldn't get to it in time. Or, you know, if there's a stalled car, you knew someone was going to help push it along. There was always time, and there's always time to help a neighbor in need. And yet at this time, when in our society at large, it can seem so divided, I am reminded there is this narrative being sown. It's a narrative rising above adversity and division. Yes, even partisan politics. It's a narrative of our own shared humanity. Neighbors shoveling each other's sidewalks or helping push that stalled car. Neighbors working together to pick up trash in the alleys or help the senior with their groceries. Neighbors who create safe place for their children. And children who are some of our greatest teachers in what's important, our shared humanity, what we have in common. My wife put on Facebook, now I'm not making this up, this is crazy, but she put this post on Facebook last week. This is Sammy and his new friend. There's a picture. They met 10 minutes ago on the playground. His English is limited, but they quickly learned each other's names and grades, discussed siblings and pets and their report cards. They are now running around, laughing, playing a game they made up. Last night at church, we talked about childlike faith. But right now it occurs to me that we should also strive for childlike friendship. Let's see strangers as potential friends, find common ground, and enjoy each other's company. Let's help each other up when we fall, and make up new games so everyone can play. Let's stop making things complicated like adults tend to do, and accept each other with the joy of an extroverted second grader on the playground. So our neighborhood chose the name Commons Park, because in this place we find our common ground, and in the children we can learn again friendship. Indeed, we have more in common than not. And what better place than a playground in the middle of our neighborhood to remember that? Commons Park.
Fabulous. Thank you, Joey. Okay, I think with that, we're going to officially cut a ribbon. So some folks are going to come up, and I think these folks, will help. And I'd like to make sure Ben Jackson, who made this project happen, and Ricky Knox, who's going to manage this park, get them up here to help us cut the ribbon as well.
Oh, thanks.
Get on up here.
Get a scissors. Some big scissors.
Big scissors, yeah. I don't know if people can trust me.